For centuries, Africa has endured the heartbreaking loss of its invaluable artifacts, stripped away by colonial powers and collectors driven by greed. These stolen treasures, imbued with immense cultural and spiritual significance, represent the very essence of African heritage. Their removal from their rightful homes stands as a haunting testament to the deep injustice inflicted upon African communities. However, some Western institutions are making huge efforts to return stolen artifacts in their possession, serving as a glimmer of hope and reigniting the discussion around the imperative need for the repatriation of every African artifact scattered across the globe. But as we celebrate these victories, we must ask ourselves a profound question. How can we rectify the past and foster a future where every African artifact is reunited with its origins, restoring dignity and healing the wounds of historical plunder? Hello and welcome. This is Rain Smith, and you are watching the New Africa channel. According to multiple news reports, 37 wooden memorial statues known as vigango are being returned from Illinois to Kenya, where officials believe they should have remained and never been removed. The Illinois State Museum reported that the vigango statues have been returned to the National Museums of Kenya for repatriation to Mijikenda villages. Officials from the Illinois State Museum and other museums and universities that had vigango in their possession announced that they will visit Nairobi this week to participate in a ceremony to recognize the return of the sacred objects. The statues, which stand as tall as 7 feet, are regarded as important cultural relics because they portray deceased male enders and are thought to contain their spirits. They were often erected in front of a homestead in memory of a male elder in the Mijikenda community who had died and were not meant to be moved. The vigango were initially removed from Mijikenda villages and sacred sites in the 1980s and bought by art collectors, according to officials. They were then transferred to the Illinois State Museum as part of a significant African art collection, but unbeknownst to the museum, the vigango never should have been taken in the first place. It's important for these communities that the vigango go back and are part of the community again. Dr. Brooke Morgan, curator of anthropology at the Illinois State Museum, said in a statement, because it means that their community will be healthy in terms of spiritual wellness, and that these things can't be separated from their communities. These items are sacred and inalienable from the people who created them, Morgan said. Separating vigango from their rightful owners harms the spiritual well-being of the whole community. The museum has long recognized the importance of returning these statues to Kenya and appreciates the institutions that have helped pave the way for such a significant large-scale return, she concluded. Indeed, members of the community revere these statues and frequently attribute disasters like disease, drought, and crop failure to their absence, according to Linda Giles, a retired anthropology professor at Illinois State University who has studied the Mijikenda and other coastal villages. Dr. Giles said she was delighted to see more museums return artifacts to their home countries. It takes a while, but it's catching wind, she said. Museums are deciding they shouldn't have these. Also, the sacred connections these artifacts have with their countries of origin are why curators like Dr. Morgan of the Illinois State Museum believe these museum artifacts should be returned. We just don't have the right to them, said Dr. Morgan. They represent a spirit, she added. Sadly, even after museums decide to repatriate artifacts, Dr. Morgan says they must navigate a maze of red tape. When Dr. Morgan started working at the Illinois State Museum in 2018, she was advised that returning the statues was a top priority. However, the museum waited since the beneficiaries would have to pay high costs. Because they are deemed art, the artifacts would be taxed upon entry into the country. This is one of the main reasons why museums around the world continue to hold and exhibit stolen antiquities. However, since repatriation remains a topic of debate and organizations that have not done so face increased scrutiny, more are embarking on what may be a lengthy process to return assets. The long-awaited return of the stolen artifacts from Kenya marks a significant step towards rectifying historical injustices and honoring the rich cultural heritage of Africa. This act of repatriation not only signifies a triumph for the affected communities, but also serves as a reminder of the imperative for other institutions holding stolen cultural artifacts to follow suit. It is high time that museums, collectors, and nations across the world reflect upon their roles in preserving cultural diversity and righting the wrongs of the past. By actively returning these treasures to their rightful homes, we can collectively contribute to a more equitable future, where cultural heritage is respected and celebrated in its authentic context. So, what do you think of today's video? Are you excited about seeing more stolen African artifacts return home? Let us know what you think in the comments section below, and as always, do subscribe to the New Africa channel for more interesting future videos.